What if you could control and manipulate reality? If you're not already aware, this world is an illusion. It's not real, but it is as real as you and I make it. And as a collective, we've created quite the mess. However, there is hope, but it requires just the smallest amount of wisdom to get us there. In today's video, I'll tell you how we can turn this whole thing around. I'll explain how the collective consciousness is our way back to some sort of normalcy. My desire is for a global community to be established, not by a new religion, but by our higher consciousness as a whole, to get back to where this all started, to the place Jesus came to remind us of. But what is the collective consciousness? And what does it have to do with Jesus? Have you ever had one of those moments when you're thinking of someone you hadn't talked to in a really long time and all of a sudden they call you? Well, what you did is you sent a message through your consciousness to theirs. Now, while some will call this New Age witchcraft or even demonic nonsense, the mind is far more powerful than stories in a book. Those were just ways to name what we couldn't define in the dark matter that we created. I am a news junkie. I used to be a highly political person until I began understanding that I was agreeing to things I was seeing, whether I consciously agreed or not. Now, I really wish I could remember this video I saw where this guy was talking about how Trump creates constant crises and continuously says or does crazy things every hour. Although lately he seems to be getting worse and it's minute by minute insanity. But this guy claimed that by Trump doing these things, he keeps himself perpetually in our conscious minds. Now, he doesn't care if it's positive or negative, as long as we're always thinking about him. And when we think about him collectively, we give him immense power. We give him the utmost authority in our collective minds. We agree with him, whether we mentally do or not. We give him the space to invade our thoughts, time, and energy. He gains more power every time we discuss him or hear about him. Our conscious minds are the things we are aware of and processing. We take in immense information every single day, and our mind then determines whether it's important or not and stores that in our subconscious. Years ago, I came to this realization that our consciousness was the spirit speaking to us. Sometimes it sounds like our own voice, and that would be our higher consciousness or our higher self. And it's giving us a warning or revealing prophetic insight or information we wouldn't normally see or understand. It is the localized active I am awareness operating in the present moment. The thin layer of real-time perception sitting atop a vast ocean of subconscious data and divine intelligence. It handles deliberate thought, logical reasoning, decision-making, and critical analysis. It's the mental workspace where you hold short-term information to solve problems or navigate immediate surroundings. It's also the mechanism that chooses to pause, redirect focus, or initiate physical action. Now, those are the scientific realities of the consciousness, but on a metaphysical or spiritual basis, it is referred to as the observer. It is a divine spark of awareness experiencing the here and now reality. It is the bridge between the heavy material world and the invisible, subconscious, superconscious realms. Our brain is like a computer, running multiple layered softwares and programs at one time, like having 500 tabs open on your laptop. It's also storing memory and patterns while deciding which information to keep and what to toss out. Whatever the conscious mind accepts as true through belief, focused emotion, and attention, it gets stored to create and manifest physical reality. In April of this year, on April 29th to be exact, I did a manifestation or a consciousness experiment. I was watching the Stanley Cup playoffs and I had a vision of an 8 making a surprise goal from far away. I spoke it out loud to my husband. I was either going to look brilliant or magnificently stupid. I didn't know anything about the team or even hockey at the time. I was just beginning to watch sports to stop giving my attention to the constant crises in the news and landed on baseball and hockey. And for some crazy reason, Philly teams. I kept visualizing this play and the number 8. It was 11 minutes into overtime. The Phillies were getting hammered at the goal the whole entire time. They could barely get to the other side of the rink. I noticed their goalie's number was 80. And then all of a sudden, another player named York wore the number 8. All of a sudden, York, 8, scored from a distance and made the winning goal. Just the way I had said it would. We all have a higher self. Our higher self is our spirit being, a connection to the higher consciousness, which isn't ours, but is divine and comes from a place of divinity. It is linked directly to our home, where we all came from originally. This would explain why many ancient cultures who also experienced these things but didn't have access to modern science and technology, they would be confused by this and they called it God. Their collective consciousness could literally manipulate and control physical reality. They could form the world in one way or the other. And there was a group of people who once lived in the utmost understanding of this consciousness, and they lived in absolute peace, unity, harmony, and balance. They were the Lemurians. We've all heard the stories of Atlantis, the fictional world described in countless stories, but many people never heard of their counterpart, the Lemurians. Recent archaeological discoveries have now determined that these two civilizations weren't fiction at all, but indeed existed, but eventually caused so much discord on the planet that their disunity and abusive use of the Earth's resources eventually caused the worldwide flood. No one discredits the flood, but only one religion hijacked it as a religious truth while denouncing every other civilization's account. I did a pretty deep dive into the Lemurians in previous videos. I'll link them below so you can watch them and learn more about them. But the gist was this. In esoteric traditions and ancient cosmological frameworks, the Lemurians are viewed as the original first people of the physical Earth. The peak of physical Lemurian civilization is placed anywhere from 34 million to roughly 1 million years ago. Now, if you've come from a point of view from Christian theology, that's impossible. But if you look at it in scientific reality, it's far more plausible than the Adam and Eve creation story. Lemuria spans the transition where spirit first fully anchored into physical flesh. They were the very first beings to condense out of pure energy into actual dense biological forms. So, where did they come from? The Lemurians operated in a state of unified, heart-centered awareness, a direct, uncorrupted link to the divine source frequency, or the highest consciousness, once referred to as the first power in ancient Hebrew texts. Jesus would have been the second power, referred to as the one who would come and rescue us. Again, these are the original words and understandings that were removed and replaced by gods, or the one true God, created during King Josiah's reign. Their primary communication was energetic, tonal, and telepathic. The third eye, which is the pineal gland of the brain, wasn't an internal organ tucked away under calcification. It was their primary organ of perception.
Did you know that fluoride blocks the spiritual eye of the pineal gland?
Why, yes, Satan, I did. I actually stopped using fluoride a few months ago and felt a spiritual shift within a few weeks. And it was during that time when I had a divine revelation about how we got into the mess we're in today. So I just discussed two things that could be dug into much deeper than I have time for today. The first and second power, and how fluoride blocks the third eye, or our spiritual awareness, which is our direct line to the divine source. So if you're interested in these topics, let me know in the comments below, and I'll explain these topics in further detail in a future video. Now, remember the guy I mentioned who revealed Trump's desire to live in our consciousness all the time? Well, that shit scared me. If we're constantly giving our attention to something, it will begin to manifest. And if we aren't aware of what we're manifesting, it probably means we're creating dark matter, like Trump, like war, like earthquakes. If millions of Christians are focused on the end times, we're going to start seeing end times type events occurring. Complaining about Trump will continue to give him power. Ignoring him takes his power away. Not listening to the news or reading about certain things stops giving it power. Now, my terminology of dark matter isn't defined as science defines it. It was just a way for me to describe what we subconsciously created and continue to create. It's the evil we see in this world. It's the elite class, the deep state, serial killers, and child predators, and those who protect them, and so on and so on. And as more people are awakening to their spiritual eyes, the more is being exposed, which means there's hope. If you can grasp just the basics of the Lemurians and Atlantis, dark matter will begin to make the most logical sense in terms of describing it. We now know that the Lemurians were light and spirit. They came from the highest consciousness, the first power. If Lemuria was the golden age of the heart, spirit, and organic harmony, Atlantis became the era of the mind, ego, and technological domination. The group that anchored into the new land of Atlantis embarked on a different evolutionary experiment. An experiment is the key word I'm going to focus your attention on now. We're told that Earth is a school. We're here to learn something important or gain wisdom or some kind of crucial lesson. In Gnostic ideology, it's why we keep getting recycled back into the matrix of a cruel reality. We die and meet what seems to be our dead ancestors who convince us we have so much more to learn. We can do better next time. So we agree and come back, reincarnated into something or someone else, our memories wiped entirely. But what if we're here because an experiment went wildly chaotic and took a turn for the worse that we've been trying to fix for millions of years? After giving my pineal gland a break, on April 30th of this year, 2026, I received a very strong and clear understanding of our reality and existence. Now, this isn't scientific fact, but it's also not as crazy as I first thought. I've come to realize that many scientists may have come to this conclusion as well, especially those studying consciousness. I journaled, "We are the fallen gods." And suddenly, I saw the Lemurian people as the ones who left our divine source and home to see what they could create as a sort of experiment. The source didn't stop them or convince them not to do it. The source is good, pure light, not holy, pure. And as a pure source, it would never interfere in the collective by making rules or laws we would need to abide by. That would create chaos and dark matter, which the source cannot do, ever. Through the collective consciousness of a select few, they decided to create this universe and a place to live in new human forms. They created every resource for survival. And when the Bible says we were created in their image, humans were formed from the image of what we look like back home.
And where is your so-called home? Do tell.
Well, fair question, Sky God. I know I keep saying home, and honestly, I'm not sure where home is or what it's called. Many people have put a New Age spin on this idea, but I'm not willing to say anything without absolute confirmation and evidence. And that's how you can trust me over any other channel out there talking about these things. If it's my revelation or insight, I'll tell you. Anything else is well researched and easily verifiable. I'd be a fool to go up against Christianity without that.
Yes, because my agents have programmed them well.
That they have.
That's a fact.
Let's just say that the Lemurians were creating the ultimate science fair project. It was a huge success at first, but eventually would all go awry. In its early stages, Atlantis inherited the pristine, high vibrational, spiritual science of Lemuria. But instead of remaining purely spiritual, they merged ancient wisdom with material science, creating an incredible golden age. They built massive power grids driven by crystalline generators, tapping directly into the Earth's energy. They constructed hyper-precise cities laid out in concentric rings, and they understood the subtle mechanics of DNA and energy fields, allowing them to extend life and heal instantly. But they had one major flaw that would change the course of mankind forever. They were no longer in harmony or balance with the divine and direct source. They couldn't balance intellectual power and spiritual integrity. Ego turned into power into corruption, and their society fractured. Those who remain connected to the collective and divine law of one, and those who use power to control, manipulate genetic codes, and enslave the masses. Dark matter. Abuse of the crystal energy grids and the dark manipulation of planetary ley lines disrupted the Earth's magnetic stability, triggering the final catastrophic flood that sank the continent roughly 12,000 years ago. And because of this, dark matter became reality. Now, I'm going to show you a really bad drawing of how I envisioned this breakdown. I was going to try to get AI to create it into something clean and a bit more visually appealing, but I figured it would be best to show you my actual journal entries since AI couldn't get it right. Now, looking at my graph, you'll see at the top the higher consciousness. That's home, whatever it's called. If it even has a name at all, who knows?
If you could see me, you'd see my eyes rolling.
Well, then I'm glad I can't. From there, you see the Lemurians and clear circles. Those indicate the collective connected to the divine source. Then you'll see one dark circle breaking off, which then creates Atlantis. You'll also see a very bad drawing of crystals, designating the crystalline grid, where much of the source of energy was being utilized. At first, for the good of the collective, but eventually through the Atlanteans, which was misused, causing the earth to respond. The flood. After that, you'll see the word Hebrew. These are the remaining Lemurians who knew to seek shelter in high mountainous caves and survived the Earth's angry reaction to the dark matter. And this is where life as a collective will taper off dramatically, because one group will try to hang on to this important aspect for survival, while the other group will live in survival mode, needing to control how the earth responds by controlling and enslaving those who were fearful of the next catastrophe. They took advantage of this fear and anxiety and used it as a power play, creating stringent rules and laws that oppressed mankind, which, ironically, made the people feel secure and taken care of. Sounds familiar, right? The shamans, or Samaritans, try to remain true to Lemurian ideals and become the enemy to the Judeans. Through this move, we get the 12 tribes, each creating their own gods and ways of worshiping those gods. Who were these gods? Well, they were what we have today known as the deep state. They were man-made religions led by priests who controlled the masses by keeping them in fear and demanding horrific sacrifices to appease the so-called gods while feeding their greedy bellies and ledgers. And then things got really bad when King Josiah decided to mesh all the gods together to create the God of both good and evil. This created immense dark matter, as it kept mankind in utter confusion and frustration, causing separation from the source more than ever. And then comes Jesus. He is pure light, the second power, or Christ consciousness. He is our rescue. He will teach his followers how to connect back to the divine source through the collective consciousness. He reintroduces them to the Lemurians' original way of living, peaceful, in unity, and showing them direct access to the higher consciousness by increasing their frequencies to ground them to the Earth's resonance, the divine connection the Lemurians created. He led them back to the understanding that the power of all things lies within, not outside of themselves, which forfeited their divine power. A great example of that is when Jesus didn't go anywhere or do anything when people approached him to go to their homes and heal their sick. He simply tells them, "Go home, your daughter, your son, or your child is healed." Not by his doing, but by theirs. The command, "Go home, it is done," reflects the understanding that thought, intention, and divine authority operate beyond the constraints of physical space. The moment the alignment and belief were established, the energetic reality manifested instantly back at their home. He didn't force his ideas onto people with threats. He didn't command an army to go out and force others to agree to his way of living. He established a very small group of people and formed a band of high frequency, the collective consciousness. As a whole, they could move mountains as he told them they could do. They could shift reality, change the perception of it, and create a better world. Think of it this way. When you go see your favorite band in concert, you're not the only one there. You're sharing that experience with thousands of others, and collectively, you're all sharing one feeling: excitement to see the band you love. The vibrational energy is intoxicating, fun, wild, and highly enjoyable. But one person can ruin the whole collective. If one person starts heckling or throwing items at the heads of the band members, the collective mindset shifts to the bad behavior and loses the high frequency. By focusing on the bad, the frequency drops and the mood changes drastically. You can think of the collective as a series of transmission towers, each linked together by wires and lines that connect to one another. We don't need to be in the same place. We just need to agree on the same things. Like you and me, Jesus' memory was wiped clean from the higher consciousness, our home. But he could see something wasn't right in the world. He understood the ecod. He would have studied the first power. He would have known about the consciousness. Because of this understanding, Jesus went to go find himself, so to speak. He left society for 40 days, fasted, and raised his consciousness to a higher frequency. He didn't roam around aimlessly in the desert talking to Satan because, keep in mind, Satan didn't exist in Jewish tradition. And Sheol was the afterlife, not hell. So that story is mostly made up. However, the idea behind the story could be accurate. Ascending to a higher consciousness would have meant higher authority, more power, and the ability to control the masses who operated on a much lesser frequency. The frequency that keeps us churning in chaos. Raising your frequency raises your knowledge of who you truly are. It's an awakening to the truth of your divine sovereignty. The very thing those in power never want you to know. And that's why those things were removed from your Bible. So Jesus was tempted to leave the collective and become like the religious or political leaders. He could have literally ruled the world and became king of it. During his time in the desert, he realized he was not here for that purpose, but something much more important: to bring us back home, to give us our memories back. And if you read the red, begin to read it through those eyes instead of the eyes of sacrifice and suffering. He would hate what we made him out to be. But the greedy needed you to see him that way. They could never allow you to remember who you are and the power that you hold, because your power could topple their empires. So what is that power? Well, it's me and it's you. It's the collective agreeing on better things, focusing on happier situations. It's realizing that the Bible, the sacrifice of Christ, and any other religion that demands suffering and your money are merely a curse in need of being reversed. And realizing your own divinity without the need or fascination of a God can truly break these curses on humanity. Thank you so much for watching. This video was inspired by a viewer, Kindness1111. Thank you so much. You really have boosted my spirits to keep making these videos. I hope you also enjoyed this content. If so, please help my channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting. It really does help. Thanks again. I will see you next time.